Oh,
Hey, you okay?
oh, some damn enchiladas.
Oh.
So I just finished rewatching Friday the 13th Part 5 A New Beginning, and I've got to say, it's probably the worst Friday the 13th movie I've ever seen. I still have a lot of nostalgia for it because I can remember hiring it on VHS when I was a kid. And I remember it being like a pretty brutal movie back then, but this has been the first time I've rewatched it in at least 15 years. I mean, it's gotta be 15 years. And I was reading online that the producers had to submit the movie to the MPAA, which is the classifications board in the United States, 9 different times before it was allowed to be released with an R rating, or else they would have released it with an NC-17+. That means that they had to cut the movie 9 separate times. And when you watch the movie, you can really tell that it's been absolutely butchered, no pun intended. The movie is virtually without gore or any sort of memorable kills. The most memorable part about the entire movie is honestly that scene where Joey, the overweight kid with the chocolate bar, he offers one of the chocolate bars to a guy named Vic, and Vic just ends up not being able to take his shit. And so Joey goes, "Well, I think you're really out of line, pal." And then Vic kills him with an axe.
Well, if that's the way you feel, forget it, Vic. Just forget it. But I think you're really out of line.
And that's got to be the most memorable scene in the entire movie. Or there's another scene later on in the movie where this hillbilly named Junior is riding around on a motorcycle screaming his fucking head off. Like, he is absolutely going ham on it. He's screaming his lungs out. And it's just, I was watching it and I just laughed out loud. I just couldn't deal with it, man. It was so ridiculous. And yeah, because he gets the shit kicked out of him by Tommy Jarvis. And there's just so many unintentionally hilarious moments in the film. Alright, there's this kid named Reggie, and he tries to scare Tommy Jarvis earlier on in the movie with a fake spider. And then Tommy, and this is, I've got to admit, is a nice callback to the previous movie, Friday the 13th Part 4, Final Chapter. And Tommy turns around and scares him with one of his masks. I actually really respect and like that they carried that little trade over, because he's making all these like horror masks, played by Corey Feldman in Part 4. And although I will say Corey Feldman does appear in this movie briefly at the start when he's still a kid, in this like dream sequence with the original Jason. But anyways, Corey Feldman doesn't play a significant role in the movie, unfortunately, because he was making The Goonies at the time. So there's that one little bit of carryover that I really respected. And yeah, as I was saying, Reggie's older brother is a bloke named Demon, and he's played by Miguel, the same guy that's in Return of the Living Dead Part 1, who plays Spider in that movie. So that brings me to the funniest moment in the entire movie. Arguably the funniest moment, when Demon is like complaining about a stomach ache and he yells, "It's those damn enchiladas," or something like that. And oh man, I lost my shit. It was fucking hilarious. So yeah, Friday the 13th Part 5 A New Beginning does not function or work as a horror movie at all. It's a miserable excuse for a horror movie. There's barely any gore. The most memorable kill is probably when when fake Jason is twisting that guy's head with the leather strap up against the tree. You can tell by the sound effects that a lot of these kills were meant to be quite brutal, and I would love to see an unrated version of this with some of those kills restored, because this movie is really lacking in that department. But I will say that it is a lean 90 minutes long. The time flies by. Like, I got to the end of the movie and I was like, wait, I'm at the end of the movie already? It's that quick. It's kind of unbelievable to me how quick this movie actually flies by. You're introduced to Tommy as an adult, and then all of a sudden the killings start happening, and then it's the end of the movie and you're like, wait, where the fuck did the rest of the movie go? Some of the performances are great, and then some of the performances are absolutely woeful. So in the woeful category, you've got the character Junior, and he's just like the fake hillbilly accent and all of that. It's just ridiculous. So a good example of one of the better performances in this movie is the character of Jake, played by Jerry Pavlin, and he's the character that has the stutter, and he tries to hit on that girl he's sitting on the couch watching the old movie with.
I want to be with you. really do want to be with you. I want to make love with you.
And I actually really felt sympathy for that guy's character. He just played him in such a, you know, a real way. I just felt he copped a really harsh death and I felt sorry for him, so I know the performance was quite good. Yeah, the old meat cleaver to the head. So the one thing that everybody absolutely despises about the movie is that it doesn't have the real Jason. The character of Roy, the ambulance driver, the paramedic, he's actually the killer at the end of the movie because Vic kills his son Joey, and that's the big twist at the end. I don't even want to call it a twist, it's just kind of goofy. And so people really dislike that part of it, and I feel like that's why people don't look at this movie with any degree of fondness when they're talking about the series, like retrospectively. But I've got to say, I still think I prefer this movie to something like, what's the other worst Friday the 13th movie? Probably Jason Goes to Hell, because that's, you know, Jason is in that movie, but it's kind of ridiculous, and it's got like the little hell worm thing that burrows into people's mouths. Kind of ridiculous when they went the whole Hellraiser crossed with Friday the 13th kind of vibe. But overall, I don't dislike this movie just because it's so unintentionally hilarious. It is a product of its time. It's very 1980s. It's got such a 1980s vibe. And one of the great things about the movie is the sound effect and the scoring for the movie. It's got that iconic Friday the 13th soundtrack. It's almost as though the entire budget went to that soundtrack because it sounds so fantastic. Like, I would literally just put that on and listen to it like an absolute psychopath. It's that good. But honestly, I can understand why people dislike this one so much. It's definitely one of the worst Friday the 13th movies. I wouldn't call it the worst though, because Jason Goes to Hell is so much more bizarre than this. It does do something different, but this is like a tried and true Friday the 13th movie, just without any of the memorable gore or anything like that. I mean, if you're a fan of nudity, this movie has a lot of that, but I feel like that's not really a selling point. I guess for some people it is, but for me though, when I was a kid, I always preferred the kills. Like, the nudity and all that stuff didn't interest me whatsoever. I just wanted to see, you know, my main man Jason killing people, and in this movie you don't really get that. All you get is an imposter and really tame, unimpressive kills. But it does have a high body count, it has a fantastic score, and it's sort of neatly tied in with Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. So if you wanted a continuation of that particular storyline, this does follow that up nicely. John Shepherd does a fine job as Tommy Jarvis, but I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I am a Tom Matthews stan. I much prefer his performance as Tommy Jarvis in the next movie, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives.
Don't shoot, please! You in show business, kid? You sure know how to make an entrance.
And that is the vastly superior movie. Way better kills, way better premise, and it actually has Jason as well. So what do you guys think of Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning? Let me know in the comments below. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. And until the next video, my name is Marcel from Aussie Horror, and I'll catch you guys around.